Today, joining us is two-time World Series champion, Joba Chamberlain. Joba, first off, it's an honor to have you on our show. How's your summer going so far?
Good, man. Just playing some golf and hanging out. My son actually just went back to college for a little mini camp thing to get ready for the season. Other than that, got all my fingers from the 4th of July, so that's a win. Nobody nobody got hurt. So other than that, it's just been fun. Obviously, College World Series was great. That's always a fun event. And who knows with what the Yankees are doing right now. I'm just getting some more gray hair as that goes on. But other than
Yeah.
that, it's been good, man. It's going by fast. I can't believe it's already almost the middle of July already. So
I know the June swoon is over. We're pumped to have you on the show. A lot going on, I feel like, in Yankees world right now. Look, these 2025 Yankees share the same record that the 2023 Yankees once held, and we know how that turned out. I think we can all agree the offense is better than that 2023 team. It's more balanced, but pitching shaky. How nervous are you, Jabba?
I wouldn't say you don't press the panic button yet. I mean, we're 90 games in, so we still got 70 to go. It's just you know how it goes when there's a rough patch. It's always, press the panic button. What do we need to do? Do we need to fire somebody? And that's just kind of the nature of the beast, what comes with this team and obviously the history that trails it. But there's no panic button. I mean, yeah, it's been a rough stretch. But you have the right guys in place to be able to get them right back on track. Been some bold comments lately. I'll be perfectly honest with that. Are they a good team? Yes, but I think they're the best team right now? No.
Yeah.
But that's just, I mean, you want to have that confidence, and I understand that. And he kind of took some heat for that. But what's he supposed to say? We suck. No, we're not the best team. Like, what do you expect him to say? So, um, yeah, I just think there's no need for the panic button yet. Obviously, losing first place sucks, but going into the break, we've got what, 6 more games or something like that. And you're within striking distance. It's not like you're 25 games out, right? So I think it's just take a deep breath. You're gonna have to take it one game at a time, and just get back in the situation. There's gonna be some guys that need to step up. I mean, that's the long and short of it. But that's every year. We could talk about every year being the same and cliche of you can never have enough pitching, you can never have enough timely hitting. We got to hit with runners in scoring position. It doesn't change. I mean, the game is still the game. We do need more timely hitting. Volpe's struggling with runners. He's left over 150 runners on. And so there's just some key moments where you got to turn those around, and that's the difference between a winning streak and a losing streak is getting those big hits. So I'm not panicking yet. You got guys that can get you deep in the games. You got guys that are kind of flip a coin and see what happens. And we've kind of seen that all year. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm really interested to see what the deadline is going to bring and how they approach that. Just kind of listening to everybody, making my own, assumptions from watching the game. And, I think there are a couple, moves that need to be made as far as, to be able to compete and do those things. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed, which hasn't been addressed in previous years at the deadline. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I guess that's where I get worried. And I'm all for the Yankees philosophy, stay on course. It is a long season, that's true. But I go back to 2023 because that was a team that had a lot of holes and they had a hot start, and I think that's why they kind of kept going back to the fact that, okay, well, we know that we can be a good team. And I just get worried, like, yes, if the Yankees have a good trade deadline, they can get right back to a World Series contender. But does it worry you at all that they don't have that mentality sometimes because of their complacency?
That's a great word because I think there is times, and I talked about this on my show yesterday, um, with Ben Lyons, who Yankees fan, Knicks guy, Liberty guy, and it's you. I feel like when I watch the game, and I probably watch 85-90% of the games, and so I watch a lot of baseball in general just because I love baseball, but there are times where it looks like certain individuals, and I won't mention names, but we all have our own opinions and thought processes. But sometimes they look like there's not really competitive at bats, like they're very complacent, like, okay, let me get out of this early, don't go deep into the counts. And some guys that is a game plan, but I've seen times where it's just there hasn't been a sense of urgency to, okay, I need to get the ball to the right side. I need to do the small things that can maybe we can scratch one across and then get some momentum and build here and not always rely on a home run and things of that nature. So there is, I wouldn't say from everybody. I think obviously you got one of the best players in the world, so you kind of end up relying on him a lot. But he can't do it by himself. He's going to have other guys. Obviously, we've seen Jazz get hot, which is obviously helps. Goldie's kind of touch and go, always going to give you a good at bat. Um, and so I just think there's bits and pieces that need a fit, but there's going to have to be somebody that steps up. I don't think Cody's not going to be the MVP of Cody, but he's the shell. I mean, the play that he made on Sunday was unbelievable,
No.
and once he gets confidence and it's not like this is overwhelming. Like he grew up with the Yankees, obviously with his dad. He played in LA, so it's not the moment's not too big for him. It's just he's gonna find his because that's what he did when he MVP. I think he went on like a 2 month stretch where he barely got out. So I think there's a piece that can be put there together. I'm really interested to see what they do with some of these young guys and how they approach them. Don't think any are trade pieces from what I have heard and what I would do personally. Um, so it'll be interesting to see if they're part of the moving and shaking that happens. Sometimes bringing fresh energy in sometimes helps, sometimes it doesn't. We kind of seen with Dominguez what that it could. Some people like it because sometimes change of scenery is good for them, and then other times is they're not ready. They haven't developed them enough. So did you really hurt or did you hinder in the aspect of like their growth and them to be what you want them and expect them to be or what they're projected to be? So I think there's a lot of ways to look at it from the younger guys and what they have. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces with this team and a lot of moving pieces that could contribute to them via deadline trade, what have you. So I think it's next 3 weeks. Well, I mean, basically we have till August 1st. The 31st at 6 p.m. is the deadline. And obviously there's revocable waivers where there can still be a trade after, but it doesn't happen very often. So you're going to have basically about 3.5 weeks here where we're going to see what happens. I mean, we always get excited about the names that we hear. And then last year we got not even a back end reliever, and everybody's like, "Oh, they made a deal." And I'm like, "Who the hell is this dude? I don't even know who he
Yeah,
is."
it's terrible.
So it's just I think there's guys out there that could help that obviously aren't in their prime like they were, but I think there's there's plenty of guys out there that you can get for a decent value for what we already have and kind of put people back in their natural positions and see where it can take them from that. But also, I'm not in the front office. I don't know. So whatever they're thinking is we're going to find out, or we're not going to find out and still scratch our head and be like, what the hell are they doing? So it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that before over I think the last few years with the Yankees. And one person, Jabba, who's talked about every year is the manager, Aaron Boone. And I feel like a lot of people go after Boone for the way he does his, post-game press conferences. He almost acts like, I think, a little bit too composed, in my opinion. He said like the other day when the Yankees were in 6-16 stretch, they had just got swept by the Toronto Blue Jays, and he told his players he wants to be unfazed about what's going on. A lot of people have been talking about it. Do you get that same vibe from Aaron Boone, someone who's played? Like, do you think he's too composed as a manager?
Uh, I don't know if unfazed is the right word. I think there is parts of it where you can't live and die on every pitch. The season's too long. I mean, you'll be burnout. It's just you can't. And it's like when people say I'm locked in all the time. No, you're not. Stop lying. Like you can't be locked in every pitch. It's
Yeah.
impossible. But I think the unfazed part of kind of what avenue he was trying to portray is Yeah, we've had a rough stretch. Don't let it phase you of the end goal of what this team could be or what we feel like we can. I think you have to be unfazed because when you go through a stretch like that, there has to be some type of adjustments. I'm not saying reinvent the wheel. I'm not saying change whatever you need to change, but there has to be some changes in either the way you manage, either the way, do we play more small ball? Do we switch the lineup? And we've seen 18,000 different lineups here in the last couple of years, so you kind of never know what's going to happen. So and that's part of trying to figure out what works. So I think the unfazed part is don't let it affect you enough where you try to reinvent the wheel, but it needs to phase you in a little bit of a way because we have to look ourselves in the mirror and be like, am I doing the best I can? Is there some way that can I watch more film? Can I, work on my delivery? Can I talk to the mental strength guy? Is there something that I can do to make this team better? Because when it all comes down to it, you got to have a bunch of individuals playing for one common goal. It's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport of how can I make myself better to make these guys better? Is it selling out? Is it getting a bunt down? Is it driving a ball to the right side with no outs to get the guy to third to give us a chance to scratch one across? And we win by 1 run. Yeah, it doesn't go in the scorebook, and it's not sexy, but you did exactly what you were supposed to do, and you scratched that run across, and now we got to win. So I think there's unfazed to where you're not trying to reinvent yourself or reinvent everything that you've done, but also be phased by it because you know the ability of the team and how and what the end goal is. So unfazed is probably not the right word I would have used, but I kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah. Another thing that I think a lot of fans have gone after Boone and the Yankees this season is, benching players, when they're hot. We saw it in Cincinnati. Dominguez went 4 for 5. And then I think the Yankees had an off day. He sat the next day. There was an instance where Vulpi got 3 hits in a game when he was struggling, and the Yankees sat him that day. There was another instance. Judge was on fire. And look, Judge is not going to play every day, but he was hitting home runs left and right, and they sat him. Do you agree with that? Like, do you think that, like, just because a guy's hot, like, they should be sat or something like along those lines?
No, I'm the exact you ride it while it's hot because then that builds confidence. Yeah, you're not going to get ahead every time, but you go in through 2 game stretch of 4 for 5 with 5 steaks, a homer, and a double. I'm running you out there, and if you go over 3, so be it. You know what? You're still 4 for 8 or 4 for 9. I'm going to take those law of averages any day of the week. I've never got that in any level, even from watching my son play not only basketball but baseball and all these, and I'd never have got why you take a guy out when his confidence is building, and then now that exudes even more so to help you at the end. He's like, no, I know I can step in for 2, 3 games and get hot and help this team win. And then I think it's kind of, I guess, detrimental because it's like, hey, what else do I have to do? Like, I'm hot right now. Unless they're asking for the days off, which we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, I've played 10 in a row. Like, because I've noticed a lot of it too has been on like, it's either a getaway day or where there's been a decent stretch of games. And I don't know if Judgy's asking for days off or those guys, Dominguez and Volpe aren't in places to be able to do that yet. So I don't like it personally because I want to ride the hot hand while I got it. If we have to shake the lineup up a little bit and move some guys, but it just gives them the confidence that you believe in them and they could get hot and they can continue to go on this stretch. And then, all right, yeah, you're going to hit a bump in the road, but boom, I can come back and do this because I've already done it this year. And so I'm not a huge fan of it. I ride it while it's hot, and then when it slows down, then it's like, you know what, we had a good run. Look, you went you went 4 days in a row and you hit 390 or whatever when they were probably hitting 220. But now you have confidence in them, and they have confidence in themselves that they can do it. And I just think that just helps in so many ways, not only offensively, defensively, but mentally and emotionally, because now they feel like they can do it. So as a manager and as a coach, and I only coached my son 2 years because I was probably going to have no hair or it was all going to be gray by that point. So I was like, I had to, but I always wrote a guy if he was hot, and if it wasn't his normal position, but he was doing well. I was like, you want me to run you back out there? And yep, here you go. Let's go. And we'll play it by ear and see what happens. So yeah, I don't like when they pull them, but that's just what the hell do I know, you know?
It is really refreshing to hear that logic, though. I 100% agree. And I think it also applies to pitching. One of the things that drives me crazy with the Yankees is how they manage their bullpen. Guys don't get clean innings. It is strictly matchup based. I'm curious if you think that same logic applies to bullpen guys. Devin Williams came out a few weeks ago. He said that he thinks the bullpen operates better when guys are pitching just one inning. But, it seems like the simple logic is the more guys that you bring in out of the pen, the more likely it is that someone's just not going to have it that day. So, if a guy goes out and he's dominant one inning, wouldn't it just make sense to keep rolling with him? But it seems like it's just so matchup dependent. And we do see it with starters too sometimes even, Rodon getting pulled after 90 pitches. It's like,
It's funny you bring this up because I was doing some stuff and on the 6-man rotation and how that would affect the bullpen. And I'm glad you brought this up because let's think about it like this. Now, instead of what are we seeing? And you brought up a great point. Carlos Rodon's going to get you 30 to 32 starts, right?
yeah.
But the average is not even barely 6 innings. And he's done with 90 pitches because analytics says the third time around they whatever that analytics stat is, right? Okay, so now if you go into a 6-man rotation, where now, like you just said, you're bringing 3, 4 guys out because they're only getting you into the sixth, so you got to cover the sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth. So you're almost covering half the game because you're not letting these guys go. Very, very few managers are letting these guys go 115 pitches. Like that's if you didn't go 115 pitches back in the day, they called you a pussy. They're like, no, if you're not pitching, then what do we need you for? So then
Yeah.
now look at it from this point of view. Now you're going to get him for 26 to 27 starts, where that's taking 5 games away. But now you're probably going to let him go into the seventh inning, where now you're only having maybe cover 2 and some change instead of 4 and some change, maybe even 5. So it's something that I've really thought about. And then on the other end of it, as far as the bullpen and the way that you stated it, when you have that many guys come out of the bullpen, somebody's probably gonna lay an egg at some point. Sometimes it may not happen. When you're rolling good, it's like, hey, that guy in front of you got a zero, boom, I got to get a zero. So it can work in both ways. But for me, the tough part of watching this bullpen is I don't know who the hell's role is what. Who's the long guy? Who's the setup guy? Who's going to get a save? I get it's kind of by committee or whatever. But if I go down there every day, I can get prepared physically at any time. But if I'm already beat mentally, like, okay, do I start stretching in the fifth? Or like, hey, do I have to be ready? Am I coming in the eighth? Am I going to come in to close? Is it going to be a matchup? So you're playing mental ping pong with yourself back and forth. Like, okay, the phone rings. Is it me? Is it Luke? Is who is it? And so when you're trying to do that, it's hard enough to be successful in this league. But when you don't have any idea of what your role is or when that phone rings, then how are you supposed to be prepared? Because then you kind of over prepare because you overthink it. And then it's like, okay, well, I got ready 3 innings ago. My number hasn't been called. I better stretch or do something again. So that let the job dictate itself and then let them pitch themselves out of that job. But give them the opportunity. Okay, you're going to close. Well, it didn't work. Okay, now you're going to be seventh, eighth inning guy. Okay, well, now I'm that. Okay, did I pitch myself back into it? Did I pitch myself out of it? And that's just something that I think is way more underrated and overlooked as far as us being the best to our ability is mentally having, I'm not saying 100% idea, but I'm saying more than a 60% idea of when I'm going to get the ball and try to help this team win. And so that's something I think a lot of people don't really look at or understand how important that mental aspect of, hey, I'm probably going to get the ball here in the seventh or the eighth. So let me prepare. Well, I don't have to be ready in the fourth and the fifth. You start getting locked in the sixth, and then boom, here I'm locked in. Here I'm ready to go. So I just think that's a value of being in the bullpen that a lot of people overlook, and I think it's a really important factor to being successful.
Yeah, it's almost kind of what you were talking about earlier with the lineup. Like guys just don't know exactly where they're going to be at a given time. So I get like it doesn't you don't have to run out the same nine guys in the same order for 162 games and the same thing with the bullpen. But I do agree. I think it gets to a point where guys need routines. I mean, think about a starting pitcher. They know when they're pitching. They're pitching every 5 days. They have an idea. So I agree. I think going into the season, me and Ryan were actually kind of pro like mixing and matching Weaver and Williams, and the Yankees are kind of going back to that now. What have you seen from Devin Williams this year? And one thing that I was very curious about because I was looking at his baseball savant and I saw that he threw a cutter. He's had another pitch his entire career until this year. He barely threw it. Like he threw his cutter 4 or 5 times the past few seasons. He had a slider at one point. And if I had to guess, I would say the Yankees just thought, okay, it's not a very good pitch. Your fastball and your airbender are elite. Just throw that. But it didn't really work to begin the season. I know he's been a little bit better. Can you explain to me as a pitcher why he wouldn't be throwing a pitch moving away from righties or into lefties, even if it's not great? Wouldn't isn't it just another thought to have in the hitter's mind?
Yeah, I think sometimes you get in your own way when you have, a pitch like he has that is plus plus that can finish. I think sometimes you rely on it too much. Uh, and he's been good, he's been bad, he's been horrendous, he's been great. Like he's kind of been all over the board. I think he's pitching to a little over 5.5 right now, like a 5.8.
Yeah, it's not.
So, and he has good stretches, and then, it kind of blows up. And I think he relies too much on the one pitch where if you just show it to him, you don't really have to, it doesn't have to be great. I'll use AJ Brezet as an example. He had a changeup, but he was a fastball and curveball guy. He would throw the changeup just to be like, okay, there's something different. Maybe he throws a good one, and I'm out front, or maybe he throws a cutter or a slider, whatever he wants to call it, sweeper, whatever the hell name they're just making up these days. And it just gets it off, the end of the bat where they can't just sit fastball changeup, and they have to look, and it changes their eye levels. And I don't know, maybe that's not what they've worked on. Maybe they wanted to focus just solely on that to try to minimize him overthinking and try to get him back in a spot that, obviously you've seen. But I think there's part of it too where he was pitching in Milwaukee. There's like two reporters there.
Yeah.
Now it's everything is magnified by tenfold. So you could even have, I mean, what do you have that stretch where he didn't give up a run for like 7 appearances, I think? And then it's like, okay, well, you still have a 5.5 ERA. Like, what do you like? So he can't win for losing at that point because he dug himself such a hole. And now it's like he'll have a good one and I'll have a bad one. So having to answer those questions is a little bit different than he's ever dealt with before. And through 90 games, we've seen that as fans and seen it for him as well, having to answer the questions. And I feel like he's done a pretty good job of it. He hasn't, strayed away from it or, ran from the questions. I mean, we all see what happens, so it's not like you could
Yeah.
sugarcoat it as much as you can. But I I throw it in there just for a wrinkle, just because it gives them a different look and it's something they have to put in the back of their mind. I'm not saying you got to throw it 15% of the time, but if you throw it 8 to 10% of the time, that's enough pitches in an outing where they're like, okay, I got to look for this. And if you spin one for a strike, you're like, oh, okay. And you can kind of pitch off that. So, but I also don't know the other side if they're like, hey, let's keep it simple, stupid, and let's focus on these two that, you're really good at, and then we can expand. I don't know if they sat down and talked about that or what, but I mean, you're gonna have them pitch to a better than a 5.5 to get this thing done and get to where they want to go.
One of my friends who's playing college baseball, I asked him the same question, and he thought maybe he just couldn't really. Is it pronating when you're throwing the changeup?
Your arm naturally does it anyways.
Yeah, he was saying that he was just so elite at that motion, and he probably just couldn't, get around a cutter or a slider that well, and that's why he was probably avoiding that.
Well, I mean, you can too because you naturally pronate on every pitch. Like if you throw a curveball, it's like this, but then your arm finishes like this. So it's weird because the way we throw a baseball is the exact opposite of what your body is. So your bicep is your decelerator, your tricep is your accelerator. That's why you pronate. And so he was so good at you naturally pronate that he was able to invert it even more. And that's just natural. So think about doing this even over pronating and then trying to get around the ball the other way when you're going to go this way to this way anyways. So it is difficult and try to explain people like how he puts pressure on the seam, off the seam, over the seam, under the seam, where his thumb's at. There's so much that goes into it,
Yeah.
and he may be playing with different grips. I think I probably threw like 12 changeups in my career. That sucked. So I mean, I tried everything under the sun, and I think a couple of them are still flying. Haven't got those ones back yet, but yeah. So it may be one of those things too, where like he's just trying to focus on this and getting back to that release point of why he got the nickname of what his changeup was. And it's shown signs of still being really good. It's just that
Yeah.
it hasn't all come together. So, but like I said, there's no need to panic. He can salvage this year and get big outs. And like I said, there's 70 games left. There's plenty of time for him to figure out what it is. And like I said, there's been glimpses, and it'll see. I mean, some of these guys they're bringing up right now, though, I'm like, I don't know who this person is. Like, where did you guys come from? So we'll see what happens.
Java, switching gears a little bit, we got to talk about Anthony Volpe. It it just hasn't been going well for the kid lately. Offensively, like you touched on in the beginning, he's left a ton of runners on base. It seems like the offensive struggles are now starting to go into the field. We've seen him make a few big errors over the last couple weeks. Is there anything you're noticing about Anthony Volpe and his game, his development this season?
No, the one that kind of bothered me the other day is when he fielded that ball in the hole and he threw it to third. Everybody was like, "That was stupid." There was no error on the play, by the way. Um, I didn't think that was a terrible. That's the only shot he had, and I didn't hate the play by any means. I don't know why people freaked out about it. They're like, "Oh, he just manifested into two errors." I was like, there wasn't an error on play. Nobody advanced, so that's the only play he has going. And I saw Derek do it all the time. Every time there's a runner on second, Derek would always look at Alex and be like, "Hey, if the ball's in the hole, I'm coming to you because that's the only shot I got." And so I've seen that play made more times than not, and that is the right choice to make. I think Volpe has had different expectations put on him throughout his career, and some realistic, some not. Um, Obviously, tough following in some of the footsteps that have been there before you. And I think as a young kid, sometimes you try and do too much because of certain expectations. And I always say, and people are like, "You're supposed to say that." Like our expectations of ourselves are way, way greater than what you guys put on us. And that's just the way it is because obviously it's one thing to get to the big leagues, it's another thing to stay and be productive. So when they're like, "Oh, we have expectations," your expectations don't hold my jockstrap. My expectations for myself are way greater than you'll ever have for me. And I love that because that means that they have confidence in you to be a good player, a great player to help the team win. And just for me, I think I hate to say it like this, but it's like if he takes one step forward, he tends to take two steps back.
Yeah.
Where he's like, maybe I get it, maybe I start to get it figured out, and then you press a little bit, and he just needs to like slow down first of all, and like let the game come to him. He's good enough. He's in the big leagues. He's good enough, and he's better than what he's showing. I mean, if you look at it, and I've had this argument with people, they're like, he should be great, like he should be hitting more than what he has almost 1,700 at bats. I think he's close to 1,700. He's a 225 hitter. We're not talking about 300 at bats. We're talking about over 1,500 at bats.
Yeah.
And he's been a career 225 hitter. What like did they expect him to come hit 330? Like, so the expectations of what he has shown is what you're getting. And I use Soto as an example. Like, yeah, he had one good year right through 30, but he's going to hit you 270 with 30 and 100 and 100 walks. Like that's what he's going to do. And I think Volpe, unless something changes, he's going to be a 230 guy because that's what we've seen. Not to say he can't be better because I believe he can, and he's still young enough to be able to make those adjustments. I think he needs to slow the game down a little bit and just be able to reel it in and not let it get going so fast where it just overtakes your ability and then you start second guessing yourself. And man, I know it sucks. We all get in ruts, man, and he's not the only one. As we mentioned, he's leaving a ton of runners on. He knows that. Like and that's the hard part too. I was explaining on my show yesterday is it's so much harder these days to get away from the negative because you have you've got an iPad in the dugout, you've got the video room, and it's all right there. It's not like back in the day where you had to set out to be like, okay, I need to go to video room, I need to sit with the pitching coach, I need to sit with the hitting coach, and we need to like figure this out. Now it's like, okay, I just finished in that bat, I can go see what my launch angle was, what it's all, and literally it's within a minute after I hit the ball if I get out. So it's harder for you to get away from it. And I tell a lot of the younger guys when they get up and get like a late call up during the year, sometimes less is more. And I'll use it. It's paralysis by analysis, where you get so much information, you freeze. And it's like, okay, I have so much to work on. Where do I start? That's why I say less is more. Sometimes I'm like, throw this out the window. Don't get on your iPad. Don't do anything. Do what got you here. Play baseball. Love the game for what it is and why you're here. Go out and hit. Just go hit. Don't look at video. Don't look at anything. Just go put bat to ball and see what happens. And sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes less is more with the vast information that you can get on anything or anyone right now. So it's so hard to get away from, and it's being brought into the forefront all the time because everybody can do it. We can go on Baseball Savant. We can go on Baseball Reference. Like people are getting paid handsomely to look up all these things to make us look smart and sound smart. And so now you have that thrown in your face all the time with obviously the media following, in New York, and then obviously social media and how you let that embody your presence and what you do. So I just think sometimes less is more, and I think this would be a good reset button for Volpe going into the break, and be like, hey, all right, I'm gonna enjoy my family, I'm gonna enjoy just getting away from it, get the hell away from the game, don't think about it, and then here we go. We got a fresh start coming in the second half, and see what happens.
Jabba, we got one more question for you before we wrap up here. And me and Christian, we've been dying to ask this to you. How would you get Aaron Judge out?
You can't intentionally
There,
walk him, bases loaded.
no, I don't want to I don't want to intentionally walk anybody. I always wanted to face the best because if I didn't beat the best, I couldn't consider myself one of them. You have to go higher than high. You have to crowd him. Um, it's for me, it would be up and I would be because my slider was a little bit bigger. Um, he has a little bit of more trouble with the shorter kind of cutter slider, but it go higher than high, lower than low, and off. You can't throw in for a strike. His hands are too good. Um, and then if I'm throwing a curveball or slider, I'm throwing it on the plate. Uh, I know I'm going to be able to get ahead because he swings at less than I think like 18% of first pitches. So I know I'm going to get strike one. Then it's just not making a mistake after that.
Yeah.
And so it would be a fun at bat for sure. It would be really fun. I loved facing guys like that where it's like, all right, it's a chess match. If I get you more than once, then it's like coming back. Okay, I got you with this the last time. He's going to make an adjustment. Okay, now I have to make an adjustment. Those are the fun at bats, man. It's like you always have the one guy that owns you. You always have a guy that you own, and then there's always just the fun at bats where it's like this is going to be a grind, and those are fun. I don't like them when they start off an inning or start off the game because it's like, man, can you just either get a hit or strike out or get an out? I don't want to be 12 pitches in this first hitter. Like, come on, man. So, but yeah, those are fun. Yeah, and it's to see what he did, and because he's usually perennially he's a slow starter. So, watching to see what he did this year, and knock on wood, he doesn't get a stupid injury like a toe or something. Speaking of which, if I was Volpe the other day when that ball hit Judge in the face, I'm
Oh my
walking straight to my locker and be like, I'm out. I'm out. What the hell did I just do? I'm gone. See ya.
Most accurate throw he threw all weekend.
Oh, I was like, what? I had to rewind it. I was like, what the hell just happened? And then he comes up and has the bandage, and I'm like, if I'm him at that point, I'm like, I'm just gonna grab my glove, I'm just gonna y'all come get me when if I'm still on the team. I was like, oh gosh, here we go. This is gonna be one of those stupid ones, running the fence, hurts his toe, or gets hit with a pitch. I'm like, oh no, here we go. But thank goodness it didn't come to anything crazy. So
Thank goodness. Jabba, thank you so much for coming on. This really was insightful. Great conversations. I know there's not a magic button, but if you could find some way to get involved in that Yankees organization, I think you could be a real asset. So
Absolutely.
this was awesome.
well, I can have a beard now, so we're good.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
good now. Thank you so much, Jabba.
You got it, guys. It was great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.